Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us at our January 26th Board of Education meeting. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to call to order the budget workshop and regular meeting of the Kings Park Board of Education. Please be advised that this meeting is being recorded. We have some presentations tonight, and we are going to start with student recognition. Dr. Egan.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Great to see some students on the Zoom meeting this evening. I'd like to welcome Mr. Huntsman. Mr. Huntsman, if you could unmute and introduce our students for us.
Good evening. Thank you very much to the Board of Ed. Give me a few minutes here to acknowledge some of our wonderful students we have here at Kings Park High School. And so the first student I would like to bring forward and to recognize is we have the Regeneron Science Talent Search is the nation's most prestigious high school science competition. It was formerly known, and some of you may know it, as the Intel Science Talent Search. It is considered to be the high school Nobel Prize. Only 300 high school seniors nationally were named scholars and semi-finalists in the 80th Science Talents Research ever. We were lucky enough to have a senior from Kings Park High School that made that list. Tonight, we would like to recognize Julia Salati as a Regeneron semi-finalist. Her project is entitled Utilizing MRI Imaging to Analyze Tumor Texture and its Effects on Long-Term Survival in Patients with Glioblastoma Multiforme. I would just like to, again, it's a tremendous honor to be recognized as a Regeneron semi-finalist. And I had the privilege to meet with our ISR team last Friday, and Julia told us a little bit about her project and really high level research that's certainly going to be helping others in the field. So Julia, if you're here tonight, I wish you congratulations. And you've certainly made Kings Park High School proud, our ISR team proud, and the entire Kings Park School District very proud.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julia.
That's so impressive. We are just so very proud of you. Congratulations.
And one other thing I'd like to mention, just
we just don't understand anything. That's different. You can fill us in one day.
It was just one of the things that was so impressive from meeting with these young people last week was just not only the research they had to do, but the perseverance that they had to demonstrate to continue on with their research in spite of, most of our young people received their placements right around February and March of last year when everything kind of caught fire. So their perseverance and diligence was really impressive as they move forward through that process. So once again, congratulations to Julia. At this time, I'd like to recognize 3 students that are part of our Deca program who are being honored as future business leaders. So our business club, the students were part of a very successful virtual event as part of the Huntington Chamber of Commerce, the 18th annual Emerging Leaders Competition, which was held back at the beginning of December. The students created their business plans for about a month while they were in school and also while they were working at home on hybrid. We had 2 sets of teams that placed. The first place team for human resources were juniors Alexandra Gunning and Jennifer Buckley, and their challenge entailed representing a human resource team from Starbucks in which they had to model how to interview a hire from internal and also an external hire. So some really authentic experiences, and we're very, very proud of their first place finish. Congratulations. In that same competition, we also had a second place finish for public relations, and that was junior Matthew Imbraciano. And in his role, he acted as an employee of a local marketing firm, creating a strategic marketing plan for a local restaurant. Again, a very authentic experience. And again, it's wonderful to see our students excelling in those programs. So congratulations. As part of that same club, Deca, we also had some other students that we would like to recognize. We have Deca Regionals. Each year we have students participate. So during the week of November 30th, Kings Park High School Deca students virtually tested with about 400 other Suffolk County students on their business field knowledge. 5 juniors were recognized as Deca Regional winners in their respective categories. So tonight we honor the following 5 students. Ryan Soakala in food marketing category. Congratulations, Ryan. We also acknowledge Finn Gilbert in the human resources management category. Congratulations, Finn. I see you, Finn. It's like mom pointing at you. Good job. Yes, well done. Also, Matthew Ambrosiano again in the principles of business management and administration category. Matthew, congratulations to you as well. We also have, Matthew, give us a thumbs up. I see you there, my friend. Well done. Well done. And I also saw Sienna earlier. Sienna Bertman was recognized in the retail merchandising category. Congratulations to Sienna as well. And finally, we have James McCormick in the sports and entertainment marketing category. Congratulations to you as well, James. Again, what's great about our Deca program is it really provides authentic experiences as we prepare our students for what comes next in college and career. So congratulations to all of our students that were a part of Deca. And finally, we have one more presentation here this evening. We have students that participated in the Shanti Fund. And the Shanti Fund is a community organization that commemorates the life and works of Mahatma Gandhi every year on his birthday in order to foster world peace at the local level. So we participate in this competition every year, in this organization every year. And we would like to honor several of our students have already graduated because this was actually from the previous October, but we would like to congratulate Jacqueline Zambrano. So Jacqueline, if you're here this evening, I want to say congratulations to you and thank you for all your work that you did and your work with the Shanti Fund and Ms. White. So thank you very much. Very proud to be able to recognize some wonderful young people here this evening. And Dr. Egan, I will turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Mr. Huntsman, thank you very much for that. And congratulations to all of our students for your achievements and awards. We are so very proud of you. Thank you again and congratulations. Our next presentation is our budget workshop. Dr. Egan will be presenting that.
Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our first draft of our budget. It's actually our second budget workshop, but the first budget workshop where we have some more numbers to look at. So before we get into next year's budget, I just want to make a few comments about this year's budget. With COVID and the shutdown of the state and a couple of other important details, the two budgets are somewhat intertwined. Just touch on where we are with this year's budget first, and then we'll move on to the first draft of 2021-2022. So we know that in the current year's budget, the governor was given some powers to adjust the budget, including school aid. And the governor has periodically mentioned the possibility of a state aid cut in school aid of much as 20%. School aid makes up about 30% of the state budget, and the state, it's no secret, has been struggling on its own. So the governor has told us that we may get a cut in state aid. So we've been watching that obviously very closely. The latest that we heard was that the state may still withhold 5% of our state aid for the current year. That's the last we heard. 5% is certainly better than 20%. It's better news. It's still not great news. Hopefully that won't happen, but that could be as much as about $500,000 in terms of withholdings for the current year. Budgets build on one another, so that's just important to keep in mind as we look to now develop next year's budget. So what happens is the governor releases his initial budget, and in the initial budget, you'll see that there is a total increase in aid, but that increase is both state and federal aid. And I'll show you the next slide. I'll make it a little bit more understandable, but the net increase to aid to public schools is comprised of a decrease in state aid and an increase in federal stimulus aid. There may still be additional federal stimulus aid that Washington is talking about. That is not included in what I'm presenting tonight. All that's included tonight is what was officially approved back in the end of December. So if we look at this from a more of a chart format, we have 2020, 2021, and 2021, 2022. You'll see that federal aid goes up substantially, and state aid is actually down a little bit more than 2%. Total funding is up, and we'll look at where that funding actually goes in a minute. There is this new term, local district funding adjustment. At the end of the day, that's going to be very similar to what many of us will remember as the GEA. It's just it'll have a different acronym that goes with it. I think they got wise to us and the acronym doesn't actually spell anything, but we need to be very careful as we move forward in that the federal money may be a year or two's help, but eventually that federal money will go away, and we will look for the state to make up the difference, which they may or may not be able to do. Okay, so here, our first draft budget is roughly $99.5 million. It's a budget-to-budget increase of 3.13%. The tax levy increase is currently 3.0. We currently do have a budget gap that we will look to fill over the coming weeks as we journey into April and then into May. But as of today, we still have a bit of work to do in filling a 1.6 to 1.7 budget gap in next year's budget. So with a large gap, we are looking at a budget that looks to preserve as much of the important things that we want in the budget as possible. We do want to continue to offer the best safe and secure environment in which to provide a globally competitive education for our students. The areas that we're going to continue to make sure that without a doubt that we support and preserve as we move into next year is technology, super important. We've expanded tremendously in this area in the last couple of years, and especially in the last year as we endeavored to go one-to-one with all of our students in grades 6 to 12. We're going to hear a little bit more about the technology budget later this evening from Dr. Deere. Health and safety, and in particular, mental health, are going to continue to be on the forefront of our work and desperately need our support. And our extracurricular activities are going to be extremely important for our students. In music, we want to make sure that they are definitely preserved in our budget. Our students have missed out on so much these last couple of months, and we want to make sure that those activities are supported in the budget. I'm going to turn this slide over in the next couple of slides to Mrs. Meehan, our business official. Mrs. Meehan, if you could take the reins and unmute, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. And we're going to walk through some detail behind our revenue projections, which is based on all of the information we have at this point in our budget development process. It is early, but as of last week, we had the governor's proposal, which was able to let us nail down where we are with a state aid projection, as well as some pieces to our tax levy calculation. So if you see on those first few lines of the spreadsheet there, that's our state aid projection. You notice that that first line is going down by about $2.7 million. And this is what Dr. Egan was referring to as the local funding adjustment piece. And you see that it's then supplemented a few lines down with the COVID-19 supplemental stimulus coming in from the federal money. So Dr. Egan mentioned this as well, but I just want to reiterate it that that's fine for this coming budget, but we don't know what this means for future years. And will that 2.7 million or some large number like that be coming out as a local funding adjustment without some monies coming in? It's very possible that we could be facing harder roads in the coming budgets. So we just have to keep that in the back of our minds as we go through the budget building process. So there you see net, we are down about 2.2% with the total state aid. That being said, we'll see what comes in April, as the legislative budget is typically higher than the governor's proposal, as well as perhaps there's some additional stimulus. So that's where we stand with our state aid. With the remaining pieces, such as interest earnings, we've kept flat. Oh, nope, go back still. Our interest earnings, we kept flat at this point. You see a little increase with our rental income. That's the first floor of San Remo that we rent out to New Beginnings. Our debt service reserve, we had applied $395,000 out of our debt service reserve last year. We currently don't have anything slated for this year. We can revisit that. Keep in mind the debt service reserve in particular, that impacts the tax levy. Last year, we had bond principal and interest hitting for the first time related to our bond project. So we had a very large tax levy. So by applying that reserve, we were able to lower the tax levy for our residents. The ERS retirement contribution reserve and the workers' compensation reserve, we've kept flat as of right now. We can take a look at those as well as some additional reserves, perhaps applying those. We'll see, where things shake out as we learn more and more information through the budget development process. Other revenue we've kept flat. And then we did lower the applied fund balance just a little bit, because that's something we do try to do each year, is step down our reliance on that. But we understand that this year we're starting to head into more difficult territory. So we'll revisit that decrease as well. And then our final amount there, the tax levy, that's our biggest portion of our revenue. That is projected at 3%. I'm sure everybody heard the 1.23% number. That's the CPI. That's one factor that goes into our tax levy calculation. We have a number of capital exclusions as well for all of our bond work, as well as bus purchases. So that is why our levy is a little higher than that CPI amount. Next slide, please. So at this point, it is very early in the budget development process. We're only in January. We're only starting to get everything trickle in. On the revenue side, we have open items with both the tax levy and the state aid. As I mentioned, with the tax levy, those capital exclusions and certain budgetary decisions, such as bus purchases, come into play. So if we make any changes with those decisions, that can impact the tax levy. As far as state aid, the governor's proposal is a net decrease, but we are hopeful that the legislative proposal will come in higher, as it typically does, and perhaps we'll see some additional aid and maybe even some additional stimulus as well. Next slide. On the expenditure side, we have a lot of variables, but a number of significant ones we should know for our next workshop on February 9th. So hopefully we come back and we have a smaller gap with that additional information. One piece is the TRS contribution rate. We were currently given a range of 9.5% to 10%, of which we built in the highest number in the range, 10%, in our budget. If it comes in lower, we will true that number down and see a savings there. We will know that by our next budget workshop. It's typically by the 1st of February, we find that out. Kindergarten registration is currently trying to figure out where our enrollment will stand and what needs we will have with that. So that is definitely an open item with our expenditures. And employee retirement notifications is a big piece to our puzzle, and we will know that by February 1st. So we'll come back to our next workshop with hopefully some savings there as well. Health insurance costs, we don't know what the rate for 2022 is until December of 2021. But that being said, we could get the Empire statement with first quarter analysis and be able to get a better picture on our estimate and maybe tighten up that line as well. The final thing is a biggie. We don't know what the world is going to look like in September of 2021, much less what school is going to look like. We can get a better idea seeing how these vaccinations go and things of that nature. But at some point, we need to make our best educated guess on what it's going to look like in September. In March or April, we need to figure this out for budget purposes. So that's a big piece, and we'll try to put all those factors into consideration. Next slide, please. So overall, as I mentioned, we have many important variables still outstanding, a number of which we will know for the next budget workshop. While it's very early in the budget process, our goal is to, as we always have done, propose a tax levy increase within the tax cap limitations. We want to maintain the curriculum and programs that support our district's mission, and we want to maintain our extracurricular activities, art, music, and sports. So we do next slide, please. We do currently still show that gap of $1,675,921. So how do we close this gap? I know it's a big number. We continue to advocate for additional aid. We continue to review our expenditures, look for efficiencies in areas. We evaluate that amount of applied fund balance and reserves. And it really is a cyclical process where we go through and through on the revenue side and the expenditure side, line by line, and shave off where we can and figure things out until we come to that balanced budget in April to be adopted. And at this point, I'm going to hand it back over to Dr. Egan.
Okay, this is my favorite slide that I authored a couple of years ago, which very pictorially shows where we are and how everything kind of fits together. So the gold bar represents everything that is in the budget today, $99.5 million worth of supports and staffing, and for the most part, it's everything that we have today rolled over at next year's prices. What I try to do on the right-hand side is look at our revenues to pay for what we want on the expenditure side. The other revenue, we talked about some interest income, our rent from New Beginnings, which is roughly $275,000, $280,000. We add to that our state aid package, which is roughly 20% of our budget. And then we put on top of that our tax levy, which is the portion of the budget that the community supports, which unfortunately is capped and can't grow more than a certain amount. And the blue bar is going in the wrong direction. That's actually decreasing. So this makes for a bit of a budget gap that we're going to work on and chip away on over the coming weeks and months. Okay, we're gonna transition at this point to our school budgets and then ultimately to technology. We're gonna go in height order. Our elementary schools first, our high school last, and we'll end with Dr. Deere in technology. So I'll pass it off to Mrs. Montecavo and Mr. Storch for Fort Salonga and Parkview.
Thank you, Dr. Egan. Good evening, board, and thank you for the opportunity for Stephanie and I to talk about our awesome schools. Could you advance to the next? Thank you very much. There is a lot of really good stuff going on at Parkview, but I don't want to take the time and tell you all about the awesome things, but I just want to highlight a few things that are going on at Parkview. This week, right now, we're participating in the Great Kindness Challenge, which is a national event where children are encouraged to participate in acts of kindness throughout their school. So we're engaged in that right now with the help of Wendy Hartle and Mrs. Brennan, two of our teachers and a social worker. I'd also like to point out that the Parkview PFA last summer purchased a brand new playground for us, which is absolutely phenomenal and getting lots of views from the Parkview students whenever we can go outside. And then I'd also like to point out that we would not be continuing the high level of instruction that we are right now if it were not for the Chromebooks and the tablets and all the amazing things that the tools that we need for instruction in terms of technology. So that's going along really strong and alive and well at Parkview. So in the next slide, I'd like to talk a little bit about the summary. Thank you, Dr. Egan. So our big story this year is kind of our reading program. This past school year, we put into our K-3 program, which is now, I believe, K-5, our TC reading program. So that has significantly brought down our need in our textbook line. So we've decreased that by 10,000 simply because our reading program is now whole K-3. Our general science supplies, we decreased that amount simply because students are not going to the science lab as often as a result of our social distancing and COVID-19. So we brought that line down. Library periodicals, we have put a lot of, in the last several years, a lot of money into purchasing new books for the library, books that kids will read and are interested in reading. At the same time, doing away with those that are old, worn out, or titles that are just not interested, students are not interested in. So we did some money in there simply because there are some books that kids are really like to read. Captain Underpants, for example, kids love to read those books. Dog Man, they read all the time. So some of those books get a lot of wear, so we need to replace them. So that's why we kept some money in there just to maintain some of the books that we have. Next slide, please.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Like Kevin, a couple of things just to highlight from Fort Salonga that we are very proud of. This year we installed and executed in memory of our wonderful late phys ed teacher, Mr. Michael McDermott. We created a caring garden, worked with a local Girl Scout to make this reality, this plan a reality. So we're very proud of that. And that's right outside of our cafeteria. And we also have, sorry about that, that's my dog. This past year, we had a first place winner at the Brookhaven Science Fair, and we had 2 honorable mentions that we were very, very proud of. And of course, we had Mrs. Gentile, who was our New York State second place New York State Teacher of the Year finalist. So those are just a few items just to highlight. Next slide. And like Kevin, we are, the numbers you can see compared to Parkview, exactly the same. We align our budgets to the T. And for me to explain each of the descriptions would be just for me to echo exactly the programming, the textbooks, because we finished the reading program, as he had mentioned, and library periodicals. due to the fact that we kind of reached our capacity of replacing book titles, we decided as a team to lower that line item for the 21-22 school year. Next slide. And then this budget supports, of course, our TC reading and writing program, our ongoing Envisions math program that we've utilized for a number of years, our guided reading program, as well as our core knowledge program that we utilize on the K through 2 levels. And of course, classroom supplies, classroom libraries, and our Science 21 program, which, if you recall, is a hands-on experimental program that the teachers utilize within the classrooms. Kevin, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
I think you did a very nice job, Mrs.
Oh, thank
Montecalvo.
you, Kevin Storch. I appreciate that.
Good evening, I'm Rudy Massimo, and I'm here to share some great things about RJO and some of the things that we have going that we're very, very proud of. For example, as many of you know, we were supposed to be hybrid this year. I'm very proud that we were able to open for full in-person learning. Thanks to a whole team of people, including our staff, Mr. Dumala, we were able to relocate some of the classrooms, create larger classrooms, move classrooms to stages. I don't know how we did it, but we did it in 2 weeks' time. So I'm very proud of that. And we have so many things happening that just have not changed from instruction and activities that we've had in the past. Although it may look a little bit different. Most of our clubs and activities are still running, including the idea that we're going to be having our musical happening soon. We're going to computerize it. We're going to make it a virtual musical, and using some programs, we're going to bring groups of students, individuals together, and somehow bring a video to life. So keep your fingers crossed for that one. Next slide, please. Our budget has 2 areas that have decreased greatly. And that's going to be in paper and supplies. We've really paid a great deal of attention to a paperless system now. We still have to produce a lot of tests. We give trimesters, things like that. So we're using papers for that. But that budget line has decreased by $4,000. And also our textbook line has decreased also. And that's because we're moving to some digital programs. Combined, that's a $6,000 decrease. Overall, a 5.71% decrease. Next slide, please. This budget pretty much supports everything that we've had. What I want to focus on, though, is the professional development. I'm glad that we can continue to have that. It's absolutely necessary to maintain a standard of instruction across all the grade levels. And I'm thankful to be able to keep the professional development in the areas of reading, writing, and science, which also includes all the classroom libraries and updating those. We're also bringing in a digital version of Words Their Way. Last year, we piloted it with a couple teachers. And this year now we've brought some professional development in. We've started it with some of our teachers. And it seems to be a nice spelling program that we would like to continue. So we're looking forward to that program really growing and building from there. Outside of that, you know, it's all listed on this slide. We've got some amazing things happening at RJO. Just like I said, looks a little different, but we're still doing the same stuff. So thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to present the William T. Rogers Middle School budget for the 2021-22 school year. You can advance the slide, Dr. Carson. So just to highlight some exciting things happening at WTR, first and foremost, we're just so proud of the fact that we were able to open school. It's a safe and welcoming learning environment. I know that it looks a little different. We are under our hybrid model right now, but I can tell you from checking in our students one by one in the morning, you can definitely feel the smiles, even though you can't see them. So we're just really proud of our very safe environment here right now. We're also excited just to remind everybody that we are a rising school to watch. We were designated last winter, and that just really is an exciting accolade for our building. Years of self-reflection and growth in our building, and it's a great process that we've started. Just looking forward to the next couple of years of growth for our school. We are a traditional teamed middle school. We do still have our fully and half accelerated pathways for students. We are continuing our one-to-one Chromebook initiative here at school. We were very excited to be, we jump-started the Chromebook initiative in our 8th grade, thankfully before COVID-19 kind of struck. So we had a little bit of a head start, really proud of our growth in that area. We're excited for our 16 Skimmy all-county musicians. It's a really nice number given the size of our school, compared to other middle schools on the islands, even a little better. We still have our 16 clubs and performing group options for our students. I'm just really proud that those opportunities are still here. They do look a little different, but we'll be back to normal, hopefully pretty soon. We're still using our Kidoyo program in the technology classes. We're really excited to share out some information about the Huntington Arts Council Discovery Chest that we've been a part of. We've been borrowing chests of artifacts for our social studies and ELA classes. They're housed in the library, and it's just a wonderful way for students to experience history a little hands-on. So it's been a wonderful initiative, and Dr. Carasano in the curriculum area has helped with that. Our library still features a STEM-related makerspace and a mindfulness corner. Our students love those spaces. That is a really popular spot during lunches. This year, a little quieter, but we'll get back into the swing of things. And lastly, we're really proud of our collaborative funding opportunities here at the middle school. We work really well hand in hand with our PFA. Our rec room was a really big project from last year, and we have a few students able to use that this year in small groups. It's been really nice experience so far. Next slide. So just like the other buildings, we also have a decrease this year. We're going down in the area of math supplies. That's just due to the fact that we don't need the calculators that we've been purchasing each year. We always budget for some calculator purchases. We actually are not going to need those for next year. So that's a nice portion of the math supplies budget that can come down. Also, our library office supplies budget that actually what is part of our makerspace funding. We are at a really great place right now with our makerspace, and so we're going to just pause and enjoy what we have for the next school year. We're able to go down a little bit with our the printing for our agenda books. So our students are given agenda books each and every year. They're custom created, really just nice books for the kids to keep their assignments in. And the printing, we're able to go down a little bit. We found a new great company. We're excited about that. And lastly, as you can imagine, we can go down in paper. We are using mostly digital resources here at the middle school, still using paper, but a significantly less amount. So we'll be going down in that area for a total decrease of 8,142, which is a minus 4.26%. Thank you. Next slide. And similar to the other schools as well, our budget supports all the things that we have right now that make WTR-MS so wonderful, a great place to grow and to learn. We have engaging and personalized online learning experiences. We'll be continuing at that in the new school year, regardless of what it looks like. We are going to be continuing our club offerings and performance opportunities for our students, and also our character education and anti-drug programs. So thank you for all your support. Looking forward to another great year.
Good evening. This is Mr. Huntsman, principal of Kings Park High School. It's my pleasure to present the 2021-2022 budget to the Board of Ed and Dr. Egan and our community. I just want to start, before I go through some of the details of the point of pride, I think that the thing that I'm most proud of as we work through this year is I'm really most proud of the perseverance that not only our staff has demonstrated, but also our students. We all know this has been an extremely challenging time. and to see the work that our teachers are doing tirelessly to provide the level of instruction that we've become accustomed to at Kings Park High School, and also to see our students adjust and figure things out in a real new digital world. I'm very, very proud of that overall. Obviously, at the high school level, a lot of it comes down to recognition and some of our larger events and places that we can identify places of success. So this year, we were very lucky to have a National Merit Semi-Finalist. We had 2 National Merit Commended students, which is wonderful. We're always proud of our music program when they win awards and not. More often than not, they are winning awards though. But we had all county and an all state musician that was selected this year, so we are extremely proud of that. As I mentioned earlier, we also have opportunities for students to compete in authentic competitions, whether it's our Deca programs that our students are involved in, and we also have other opportunities in other clubs that we've been able to maintain. Although certainly, as the other schools mentioned, it's done differently. Our teachers and our students are finding virtual ways to participate with each other at the building level, and also in some local competitions that they typically do. And finally, obviously, we're extremely proud of our Regeneron Top 300 Semi-Finalists, a tremendous honor that only goes to a handful of students really throughout the nation each year. Things like the Shanti Fund participation. We had Monologue Mondays, which was an event this fall, which gave kids an opportunity to just be themselves and to perform out in the community. It was done in person. Sometimes it was done virtually. So we're extremely proud of that. And finally, as far as our points of pride, I'm really proud right now of the work that we're doing to help celebrate our seniors. We know this has obviously been an extremely difficult time for the class of 2021. And I'd like to thank Mrs. Brozier and her leadership with our PFA and working with a number of other parents in support of our seniors. And also that's going to start expanding to the support of our 9th through 11th graders as well. So there's a lot to be proud of here at Kings Park High School. Next slide, please. Our budget is going down as well. Just to go through a couple of the kind of key points. That first one, the 9 through 12 supplies, one of the things I'll talk a little bit more about on the next slide is what we do every year with scholarship. And that's an endeavor that we started upon last year, where we're providing students ID cards, lanyards, and lanyard ID holders each year to our incoming 9th graders. The students that will be in 10th through 12th grade next year keep them. And it worked out pretty well this year, but that's in order to maintain that each year. There is a cost that's incurred with that. We are dropping down slightly in our membership and dues for math. Part of that has to do with a relationship that we had with BOCES to do some training that we are not going to be utilizing in its full capacity for next year. Like some of the other buildings, since we've gone so digital, our high school fine paper is also going down by almost 22%. And that was something that we've been talking about for the last couple of years, about trying to move towards a more digital platform using less paper. And certainly this year, that's something that happened in spades. So we're happy to see that budget line going down. Our social studies supply line. So the reason that is increasing is we have a New York Times upfront Scholastic magazine that unfortunately we're not able to go through. It's not eligible for a textbook code, but it's a magazine and a subscription that many of our social studies teachers rely on. So that's something that we want to support our teachers so they can provide that instruction in the classroom. That music, the one thing I want to highlight there is that's going down, but that's things like pencils and paper for our teachers. It's not impacting our kids in any way. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the music on the next slide. But just to finish up, the other thing I wanted to mention is our equipment for our technology department. So over the last couple of years, we've been able to really allocate some great funds and provide our students with some great resources. 2 years ago, we were able to get a planer for our wood. This year, we got a fabrication machine, which works on metals, woods, and plastics, which is tremendous for not only our classes, but also our robotics teams and competitions. So that's wonderful. And although that budget line is going down next year, we are still continuing to enhance what we're doing in our technology classes. And I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. Dr. Cardasano, if you can move on to the next slide. So again, when we talk about a focus on safety, one of the first things that we did here in my tenure was start with the ID cards, and we are continuing with that. One of the things that I would like to mention about that is it's expanding each and every year, and we're utilizing it more and more. We not only use it for student arrival, and typically we use it for attendance as well, but we also use it to help us monitor the bathrooms. This year we expanded to our lunchrooms and some of the offices as well. And it does help us from time to time when we have to do contact tracing or to identify where students are. So that's been extremely helpful. And then when we talk about improving our technology and equipment for our classrooms and robotics, what I had mentioned before at that budget line for our technology department, even though it was a drop from last year, we're excited to be hopefully spending some money on, it's called VEX 5 V5. And it's basically, it's a cloud-based software that enables our students not only in the classes, but also outside of the classes in some of our clubs as well, to be able to use software, whether they're in person or they're at home, which is a tremendous advantage, especially in the current world that we live in. And the other part, not only does it provide software, but it also provides actual components, new components for our students as they're building new robots and other pieces. So it's really a nice piece of software for our kids that they're going to be using. The other thing that I kind of wanted to highlight as far as our budget, I hadn't talked about it the last couple of years, but we do have our Kings Park Community Preschool that we run through some of our classes at the high school. And I'm really proud of the work that they've done over the last couple of years, especially proud of the work that they've done this year, where they're still working to reach out to some of the young people in our community, our 2 and 3 and 4 year olds. And that's happening in a different way, but hopefully next year we'll be able to be in a more traditional platform. But that's another program that we're really proud of, and this budget supports that. And then finally, just to focus on art, each year we continue to fund our art department with everything they need from clay to paints to oils to pastels to all the other modalities that they need in order to be successful in there. And we are also moving forward with hopefully the purchase of another bass, which is an upright bass, which is, again, for our music program. We know that some of our instruments are older, and the nice thing about when we support our high school is that we're able to kind of pass down our stuff to the middle school, so it really helps the entire music department as well. So I appreciate the opportunity to present here this evening, and I'll turn it back to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Huntsman, and thank you to the board for giving me a few minutes to just walk through our budget presentation for you and share some updates from the technology department. I listed some points of pride for us on here, like the fact that we went from having about 250 Chromebooks in the hands of our students last year to almost 2,000 this year, or the way we were able to facilitate communication by creating student email addresses for our older grades, or the work we did to strengthen networks, bandwidth, and security. But honestly, the biggest thing that we've not only survived, but come through the first half of a very unique year as well as we have. You can prepare and plan all you want, but until that first day of live streamed instruction, it was pretty tough to really predict exactly how things were going to go. But it was nice to see that all the training that took place, the additional bandwidth that we invested in, the services that we had to add on that nobody could have anticipated a year prior, all of that came together so nicely to support the instruction that's taking place in our classrooms and outside of our classrooms this year. And so at the end of the day, that's the thing that we're really most proud of in the technology department right now. Next slide, please. I'm going to take a moment to just walk you through some of our budget lines of interest. Our proposed budget does go up for next year, but not nearly as much as it first appears. So I'm going to walk you through that as we go through here. The first line there is for our E-rate program. The E-rate program is a way for us to get some federally funded aid back. It runs in cycles, and next year is going to be the first year of a 5-year cycle, which is one of the reasons why there's such a dramatic change from this year. That budget line includes about $40,000 that's earmarked for 2 new servers that need to be replaced up at the high school that are considered end of life. And so that's a priority for us in that budget there. On the BOCES infrastructure line, I'm going to come back to that in a moment, but I just want to highlight it so we didn't forget about it. The computer software line, we have basically a $5,000 increase there, which covers our Microsoft Azure offsite replication for our backups. Previously, we had been backing up all of our files, but all of the backups had been physically stored within the district. and it's considered cybersecurity best practices to keep a copy of those backups offsite. That's one of the areas that we were lacking in terms of our cybersecurity contingency planning. So as of a few weeks ago, I'm happy to be able to report that we've started doing some offsite backup replication to make sure that we're prepared for anything that may come our way. The other two lines there, the BOCES multi-year line is not changing, but I just wanted to draw your attention to it because we do have a multi-year plan with BOCES that's running out, I believe, next year in that code. That'll enable us to look into some new projects down the road without breaking the bank. You know, for instance, with the huge increase we had in terms of our Chromebook purchases, we also have our classroom desktops that we've had to keep an eye on. We've gotten about 3 dozen donated desktops so far this year, and there's actually another 40 on tonight's agenda for your approval. But we're trying to bridge that gap by squeezing every last bit of life out of what we currently have in district without adding to cost right now. But that'll be something probably down the road that we'll have to look into in future year budget cycles. And the computer maintenance and repair code is one that I think we're going to have to just kind of keep a close eye on moving forward, just because we simply have a lot more devices now than we did previously. The lights have turned off because I haven't moved recently enough. Okay, next slide, please. Hopefully everybody can still see me. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, this budget is going to support the replacement of 2 end-of-life servers that we have that need to be decommissioned. It'll allow us to enhance our wireless coverage throughout the buildings. With the uncertainty of next fall on the horizon, it enables us to maintain the subscriptions that we found to be critical to facilitating remote learning this year. And with so many more devices in the hands of our students, our internet filtering was a priority for us. So it allows us to continue to keep our kids safe in that way. And finally, it continues to enhance our cybersecurity by allowing us to have some secure offsite backups of our data in the event of any sort of attack. Next slide, please. And just going back for a moment to that BOCES code that I promised to give you some more info on. The subscriptions and services that we've added this year to enable us to support learning effectively in this new environment forced us to make some additions to that budget code that nobody could have foreseen or anticipated a year ago. So the budget increase you're seeing there of 14.98% is not an actual increase for next year of 15% over what we're currently doing. It's a budgeted increase of 2% over what we currently have to account for any increased cost to those services. With the uncertainty of what the fall will bring our way, we're just looking to continue and maintain the services that we've added onto this year's budget to help us navigate through those challenges of remote learning. But it's basically in line with our current spending for this school year that the pandemic kind of forced us into, with just an extra 2% tacked on to cover any price increases. And that is by far the single largest component of our budget code. So when you look at our numbers, that's going to be the greatest impact on all of our final numbers there. Can we go to the next slide, please? And with that, on behalf of my colleagues as well, thank you to the board and the community for giving us the opportunity to share some of this with you today. And if you need any other information, please don't hesitate to reach out and let us know.
Thank you all very much for that presentation. Dr. Egan, thank you for your presentation. It seems like we have a lot of work to do in this budget. Do you have any questions on board?
A question as much as comments. I hear you, the gap that we have. We knew it wasn't going to be easy, but like you said, we have a lot of work to do these next couple of weeks. And I just also wanted to say thank you to everyone for presenting their budgets and for really looking at it at every line. As you all know, it's going to be a tight budget this year, and we'll all have to work together and hopefully fill that gap. So thank you, Dr. and everyone.
So I guess maybe comments, last question, but again, thank you to everybody for presenting and for really keeping what the district goals are. I guess just from a revenue perspective, Dr. Egan, we talked about some of the aid. Right? We always say typically the governor's budget goes up, the aid goes up, but it goes up, but that's not a big piece. It doesn't go up by a lot usually. Our biggest hope is that stimulus money never changes. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, what I anticipate we might see is a larger amount of money in state aid, but it's being pushed out to districts using the Title I formula, which if you're not familiar with Title I, it's going to push more money to poorer districts. And Kings Park is considered an average wealth district. So more money gets pushed to the city, the big five, districts that we can think of on Long Island that might be a little poorer. So I think you're right. I think the number that'll help us more is stimulus money, which is a little dangerous because that can be just a 1-year stopgap, which creates a funding cliff at some point in the future, trying to fill that gap. So, oddly enough, although this budget's going to be hard, the budget for 2022-2023 might actually be a little bit more difficult.
That makes sense, and part of what we need to take into account is that long range plan as well as we go through this. But thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Egan. We are going to move on to our presentation for high school graduation results. Dr. Zavano.
Good evening, Nally. Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen so I can show some slides. Great. Hopefully, if I could just get a thumbs up that you can see that slide on your end. Great, fantastic. Just going to move it to. Great. Okay, so typically the time of year that we review high school graduation results, they were publicly released last week, and we take a look at how Kings Park is doing. Looking just as a quick review of the different criteria for high school graduation, you can see all diplomas require 22 credits. And then if we're looking at a Regents diploma, the assessments that are required, and then the assessments for a Regents with advanced designation. There are also credentialing, exiting credentials that students could achieve. These are not diplomas, these are exiting credentials. And they're typically a skills and achievement commencement credential and a CDOS credential, which is career development and occupational studies. So taking a look at cohorts, and there's two ways to look at high school graduation results. You can look at them by building, which we have one high school in our district, Kings Park High School, and you can also look at them at the district level. The difference between the two is at the district level, it would include students who are placed outside, perhaps in a full-time BOCES program, and don't attend Kings Park High School, but they're still a Kings Park student. So we're going to look at two sets of data tonight. The first is the high school itself. This would not include out-of-district students. And you look at a cohort. This is the group that graduated within 4 years. Cohorts are typically identified when students are in grade 9. So if you look at 2019, we had 301 students in that cohort. Last year's class of 2020, there were 279 students. If we look at the graduation rate, we had a 98% in 2019, and last year's graduating class was 99%. If we take a look at our Regents with advanced designation and our Regents diploma of students combined, you take a look in 2019, that was 92% that received some form of a Regents diploma, and 6% received a local diploma. We've improved in that area. If you combine the two, we had a 94% of our students last year received one form of a Regents diploma, either advanced designation or a regular Regents diploma, and less students achieved a local diploma. If we look at our students with disabilities in the cohort in 2019, there were 52 students, again, just Kings Park High School students, not out of district students. And we look at 2020, we had 100%. So we went from 98% of our students with disabilities to 100% graduating of students who attend Kings Park High School and have been classified with a disability. If we look at our Regents results or combined Regents diplomas, it would be 92% here in 2019 and 94% for 2020. So same pattern, same trend. less students achieving local diploma, more students getting one form of a Regents diploma, either advanced designation or regular Regents diploma. If we look at comparative data, we typically like to look at surrounding districts, and this is district-wide data. I just want to point that out. So this would include all students who attend a BOCES outside placement and our high school in district. So if we look at our graduating rate, you can see 97%. That's pretty strong. An area that we continue to work on is our percent of students who earn a Regents diploma with advanced designation. We take a look at historical data with a 5-year look back. The number of graduations, number of students who are graduating, you could just see that in blue, and that fluctuates based on enrollment. If you look at percent graduating, we typically hover around a 98, 99% of our students graduating. And advanced designation, we've gone from 60 all the way up to 72 in 2019. And this year we were at 69% when we look at our high school graduation for students with a Regents diploma with advanced designation. Looking ahead, what are we continuing to do? Focus on analyzing student cohorts, the courses that students are currently taking. Right now, the registration process is going on for next year. Are the students taking the advanced classes, in particular in math? We're looking at that as we speak. And who's on track right now to graduate with what type of Regents diploma, local diploma, or Regents diploma with advanced designation. And then just the last slide, the board may recall last year, prior to the breakout of the COVID-19 pandemic, the state was looking at measures of graduation for students in New York State. They had 5 guiding questions, and there were several forums that many of us attended, and those were the 5 guiding questions, and I just wanted to share that again tonight with the board. And I'm sure as we get past these next few months, the state will go back and revisit that and take a look at graduation requirements. And I'm sure we'll hear more about that in the future. So that's just a quick analysis and look back at high school graduation for the past 5 years, and in particular, the 2020 results.
Thank you, Dr. Cardizano, for that presentation. Students continue to do well despite everything that's going on. And that's good to know. Does anyone want to comment or questions?
Someone's going to say the same thing, Diane, despite everything, we're making achievements.
Okay, so we are going to move on to, this is our last presentation, update on high-risk sports. Dr. Egan.
Okay, given a few recent announcements on the state and local level, I spoke with the board and offered to deliver a presentation tonight on an update on our high-risk sports. So if we take a step back and we look at where we are today and where we started in August and then in September, we had established an overall goal of RARE. Remain and expand, with the most important goal of keeping our schools open for in-person instruction on a consistent and predictable basis. And then between Thanksgiving and then after the holiday season, we saw a quite large increase in cases in our region. I went from reporting maybe 1 case per week or per month to multiple cases per day, sometimes multiple cases in the same school per day. To put this in perspective, unfortunately, we had to quarantine more students so far in the month of January than we did in the months of August, September, October, November, and December combined. And this caused us to really focus on just remaining in school. I can't express to the board and the community enough that on a day-by-day basis, we were happy to have enough bus drivers driving our buses, enough teachers in classrooms and sometimes at home delivering instruction. And we've really struggled to remain and again, keep our schools open and consistent and predictable. It is a very accurate statement that we probably have had the fewest school closures of any school district in our area this year. I believe our high school was closed for one day, that was COVID related, and Parkview was closed for one day, that was COVID related. Other than that, we've been open, we've been offering remote and in-person instruction, and again, we've been very consistent and predictable. When you school districts in general and Kings Park, we are the bottom of what I call the food chain in terms of the organizational chart. And what that means is the state, the county, the section, and the State Athletic Association and the Department of Health issue guidance that ultimately we need to follow. Sometimes that guidance comes directly from the governor and the Department of Health. We saw a lot of that in August when the governor and the Department of Health issued specific guidance relative to school reopening that was aligned with CDC recommendations. Sometimes the New York State Public High School Athletic Association will issue guidance, and then the section, which is Section 11, which is Suffolk County, will modify that guidance slightly or make it a little bit more specific, and then that comes to us. What happened most recently, and I'll come into some more detail in a minute, is that the governor and the Department of Health released some guidance and then some revised guidance, and they passed off a final decision to the county and the Suffolk County Department of Health Services, which then was directed right at the school district. So trying to make sense of some of the things that come at school districts in terms of what I call the New York State organizational chart. So if we look at a little background for a minute, the governor and the Department of Health had indefinitely suspended what are classified as the Department of Health created 3 designations: low risk, moderate risk, and high risk, that have a lot to do with the ability to maintain physical distancing, sharing of equipment, so on and so forth. In August, the New York State Public High School Athletic Association had delayed the start of all sports through the fall. Low and moderate risk sports were then revised to start at a specific date, which was November 30th. November 30th would typically be the start of the winter sports season. What Section 11 then decided to do was postpone, rather than only start low and moderate risk sports on November 30th, the Section 11 in Suffolk County chose to postpone all sports to a start date of January 4th in the hopes that we would receive some revised guidance from the governor or the New York State Department of Health. And also this allowed for plans for running shortened but equal seasons. This way, each high school season and each middle school modified season would all be a little shortened, but they would be of equal length. And then absolutely nothing happened for multiple weeks. We didn't get any guidance from the State Athletic Association. There was no new guidance from the governor or the Department of Health. And we were all basically in a holding pattern with no additional guidance. Until Friday, January 22nd, right at the end. It was kind of unexpected. the governor made an announcement that sports classified as high risk may begin to practice and play as soon as February 1st. And in particular, these high-risk sports, which again is not a Kings Park classification, this is a Department of Health classification, includes boys and girls basketball, girls volleyball, football, wrestling, competitive cheer, and boys lacrosse. The governor then delegated the ultimate decision on whether or not and how these high-risk sports could begin on February 1st to the local health department, which for us is the Suffolk County Department of Health Services. And in addition, the governor said that this decision needs to take the following three factors into consideration. Whether there has been a more transmittable variant of COVID in the area, which might include the UK variant, local rates of COVID transmission and positivity, and the ability to monitor and enforce compliance. So based on that, here is kind of what we're looking at moving forward. So on the left, we have high school, varsity, and JV. On the right, we have middle school sports, sometimes called modified sports. So what we were left with, and I'll get into exactly what the county said and wants us to do in a minute, but a 2-month, initially it was a 2-month winter season, which would now be February 7th, and that would support boys and girls winter track, girls bowling, and independent boys swimming, which have currently been running, are low and moderate risk sports. But now we could add back in, come February 1st, the high risk sports, which are in red, which include boys and girls basketball, wrestling, competitive cheer, and we would also add in kick line, which also falls under our athletic director's supervision. The fall season is then scheduled for 2 months as well, March and April. Again, in the black print were the moderate and low risk sports, and in the red print are high risk sports, all of which now could run. And then in the spring, and to take a step back, this is interesting because we could potentially have we will have a March football contest. So St. Patrick's Day for the first time might unify with football, which will be interesting, right? That'll be certainly a first in our history. If we go into spring, we're looking at roughly May and June for the spring season. And again, boys lacrosse, although admittedly, I never understood why boys lacrosse was high risk and girls lacrosse was low risk. Now, both sports and everything else that you see could potentially run. We are anticipating that unified basketball can run this spring. There's a question mark because there are a couple other factors that are involved in that decision making. Just Section 11, so we are going to endeavor to do that, but we don't have all the information there just yet. On the middle school end of things, middle school is 4 seasons. So the early winter season is just about past us. So it's understood that that this season will not run. It did not run, and it will not run. There's only a week left in the season, and those athletes would not even be able to get enough practices in order to compete. We then look at the late winter season, which is currently under discussion with Section 11. That's why there's a dotted line around it. Potentially that season would go February 8th to March 20th. and include all the sports I have listed right there. Again, that season is under discussion. We've had many meetings on many levels this week since that announcement by the governor on Friday and the press conference that the county executive held yesterday. That piece is still under discussion at Section 11, which again is our governing body. I do anticipate that fall and spring will happen on the middle level as indicated there. And again, the red sports, football and boys lacrosse on the middle level are now cleared to happen with some restrictions that I'll get to in a minute. So what exactly is the Suffolk County Department of Health Services plan? So you will find that I have received from the Suffolk County Department of Health Services is posted to the website, right in the news and announcements. That is every document that so far we have received from the Department of Health, which does include what's called a Champion of the Community pledge. Every high-risk athlete will have to sign that pledge to participate. And essentially the pledge aligns with everything that we've been asking all of our students to do the last several weeks, which is to abide by health recommendations and to really be a leader so that we have the best chance of keeping our athletes on the field. All players and coaches need to complete a daily attestation or health screening. This is not new. We currently have the work badge that all of our students or parents should be completing every day on the app. That will now be required for all of our high-risk athletes. We should be doing it anyway, but it's an added reminder that that is absolutely required. And if it is not completed, again, Suffolk County Department of Health mandate, that student will not be able to practice or compete that day. Temperature of players and coaches should be taken prior to each practice, game, and contest. That's currently happening anyway with winter track, which is underway right now. Masks should be worn whenever possible, but definitely when not engaged in play. And we have seen this on the college and even the professional level with many football and baseball, and it'll be the same on the high school level right now. And then social distancing when not engaged in play, when on the sideline, when on the side of the court, and so on and so forth. Just a couple of additional bullet points that are pretty straightforward. Required hand washing and sanitizing before and after practice and play. We want to minimize equipment sharing, no sharing of water bottles or food. That's just common sense. Our coaches will be required to maintain detailed attendance logs, which they really do anyway in terms of knowing who attends practice and who doesn't. But this is super important for contact tracing and knowing specifically who was there. We want to make sure that we play in smart spaces, meaning be outdoors whenever possible, be in a well-ventilated location. That's going to keep everybody safe. Consider dividing larger teams into smaller groups, maybe staggering the practice schedule so that everybody's not there at the same time, limiting those individuals that aren't essential to a practice or a contest, considering smaller leagues, minimizing travel. They recommend against traveling out of the region, and they definitely recommend against traveling off Long Island. The really big thing that comes with the Department of Health plan for high-risk sports is the mandated weekly COVID-19 testing. for all athletes and coaches participating in high-risk sports. This is not a we are in the process of developing procedures and how we're going to do this. The county is committed to supplying test kits for school districts. The county executive went as far as to say that the plan for high-risk sports is, the backbone of it is this weekly testing of our athletes. That testing will be done by our school nurses, similar to the testing that we had talked about in specified zones by the state, if we were a yellow, an orange, or a red zone. And again, we're working through the details of exactly when, where, and how we're going to do that, and especially when we're going to get the testing kits. The county is permitting, for example, if a student misses the opportunity that we had in school or after school on the weekend to get a test, they can bring proof from an outside provider that they did test negative. If you want to look at any of these plans, again, everything that the district has received is on our website. Again, it's right in the middle of the website on news and announcements, right on the main page. And I'm sure we'll have other documents by the end of the week that we can also post and share with parents. I want to emphasize that this is all super new, and we've had a tremendous amount of meetings yesterday and then today. There's more meetings scheduled tomorrow. There's an athletic council section 11 meeting scheduled for Thursday that I know Mr. Deniston will be attending. So that and that districts are aligned and all doing the same thing, which is important. Couple of additional things. So as I indicated at the start of the presentation, section 11 is the body that oversees athletics in Suffolk County. They have taken a few steps in a couple of areas in terms of providing some additional guidance. So there are some sport-specific limits to the number of athletes that are permitted to attend a game or a contest. So for example, winter track might have 50 runners on the girls team and maybe about 50 runners on the boys team. But when they have a meet, only the runners that are expected to compete in the meet will attend, and it's limited at 30 runners outside. There are similar guidelines. I don't have all of them yet, but I know basketball and wrestling are set at 20. So should we travel to a local area high school and we're going to have a wrestling match, no more than 20 wrestlers would travel to that particular tournament. It also makes sense if you think of busing and capacity on buses and abiding by CDC and Department of Health guidelines on our buses. Additionally, section 11 has said for the winter season, which currently is track and bowling and swimming, that spectators are not permitted. Anticipated that this will continue into the fall season. If we do get updated guidance on spectators, we would certainly share that with the community. Just know that this is not a Kings Park decision. This is a section 11 decision, again, which is the governing body of athletics in Suffolk County. What we will endeavor to do, and we have done with the 3 sports that have been running since January 4th, is that we will be providing live streaming opportunities to the greatest extent possible. So right at the beginning of the COVID crisis, we installed cameras on our track on the turf and inside the main gym at the high school. And there is a service through the National High School Federation, NHF, that I believe is about $9.99 per month, where you can access live streaming and taped programming from our cameras at home. So it is very possible that for $20, you might be able to view the 2 months of your child's participation live streamed in contests from home. We have reached out to the National Federation, the National High School Federation, to see if they might waive that that cost. But at the end of the day, that's up to them. That's how they function and fund their program. So again, I know some folks will not be happy with the spectator issue there, but not a Kings Park decision. That's a Section 11 guidance decision. Last, we've received a lot of questions about cohorts. So, and when exactly our teams can begin. So we are going to, even though the season really doesn't start until Monday, February 1st, we are going to permit our high school high-risk winter sports teams to assemble by cohort. I believe they're starting on this Thursday, and then later this week, they'll collect paperwork, they'll re-enter. We'll make sure everybody has an understanding of the protocols, and they will begin to work out. And then official practice, we anticipate, is going to start on February 1st. We will be using very similar protocols that we're currently using with winter track. More detailed information will be coming from Mr. Deniston. He is working on the details behind the scenes. My goal this evening was to provide a clear and concise overview of where we are right now, and then the details will come from Mr. Dennison and the coaches. But we do anticipate that we will maintain the cohort model to some degree, but it'll be very similar as to winter track. So the cohort who is in school, and today was a Tuesday, so the B cohort was in school today. So the B cohort at the end of the day goes to the locker room, they change as they typically would, they go out to the field, and the A cohort arrives at school at about 2:15. It's a little delayed because we want to make sure that we get the drivers out of the parking lot. They come to school ready to compete, already changed and ready to go. They join the B cohort and they participate in the sport, and then we do the reverse at the end of practice. It's been working really well for winter track, and it cuts down on the number of athletes in the locker room, which is has been known to be a spreader event because of ventilation and close space and things of that nature. Fielded a lot of questions about the weight room. We are prepared, and we're looking at February 8th as the anticipated opening date for the weight room at the high school. Access to the facility is going to be driven by the cohort model again. If it's your day that you're in school, the weight room is potentially available to you. We will be carefully tracking capacity, very similar to what gyms and healthcare clubs are doing right now. There will be a maximum capacity of that facility, will be roughly a third of what our maximum capacity would typically be. And again, this is in alignment with health clubs and other gyms that are currently open. And we've worked really hard with our custodial staff in making sure we get that cleaned every night. They've done a yeoman's job in all of our buildings, making sure that we keep our facilities clean and healthy. So again, that's kind of a bird's eye view, making sense of where we are today. There will be more details coming later this week. This is an evolving situation that really just began at about 4 o'clock on last Friday with the governor's announcement and then the press release and press conference by the county executive. And we are committed to this plan. The hardest part of the plan will be the COVID testing. And we should have more details by the end of the week on what that's going to look like.
Dr. Regan, thank you so much. I know that you didn't get the bulk of this information until last night, and you put this presentation together for us. I feel it was very thorough. I really appreciate it, and I know that you will keep the community advised to any additional information. You've been very good about sending all that out to us. So thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions or comments regarding the sports?
Just there's a lot there.
There's a lot there. The only question I had was, when an athlete checks in the morning to go to school, does that clear them for the entire day to go to practice, or do they need to fill in another self-check?
So great question. The Mr. Dennison will spell all this out for parents. But great question. The work badge completion should suffice for practice. What we have been doing, and both teams and the referees on game day will take temperatures, and I believe they're also signing attestations right before the game as an added level of support, not only for each other, slightly different process that is in place, but on a typical day of practice, we will be asking our athletes to make sure you get that work badge completed, and that should suffice for practice that day.
So as Diane indicated, thank you for that. It's a tremendous amount of information that literally has come out at most 4 days ago. I would also like to point out and thank, going back to the summer, our committee and subcommittees, because I think I'm confident that we can do this, because I think we're well prepared. Obviously, we're getting details on how certain things are working, but from a district perspective, some of these things are things that have been thought about, and so there's some tentative plans around how we might do things and how we're seeing them work for winter track. So I have confidence that we can do this. Things like whether we need extra support for the nursing staff. Obviously, that changes with potentially with COVID testing and the training staff. I guess what about where are we in the kind of development and finalization of other procedures? Would we have to consider a second bus if it's a JV varsity situation going to an offsite?
Yeah, great question. So busing is an issue on most days during COVID. The big thing is to stay under the maximum number that a particular bus can carry, which is usually somewhere around 22. So if the team is limited to 20 traveling with a coach and an assistant coach, that keeps you under that number. We will probably need to have a varsity and which might increase our transportation costs a little bit, but it's needed in this time of COVID. One of the things that we talked about as well on the middle level is an emphasis on getting our middle level teams running first and competing second. We are limited some days on the number of drivers that we have, which is a little bit of a concern in keeping everybody healthy. So that might be a factor in what we can run in terms of busing. But we're going to need to watch that really closely. And the important thing is that the sports can run. They can practice, they can get on the field, they can get on the court, they can build their skills, they can stay in good shape, and hopefully compete. And we want to support that to the greatest extent that we can.
I think that's critically important, and the pledge. And it's interesting, I think you've seen some of the news coverage and other media coverage. I think just like getting back into school and following the rules has been key. Following the rules that are put in place in here, and the athletes and coaches holding each other accountable. I think you're starting to see that already with the winter sports that have been running, and with kids talking about getting out there for these other sports of holding each other accountable, both at practice and games, in school and out of school. And that goes for us too as parents and community members, that the only way this is going to work is if everybody stays healthy and smart when you're not.
And what you probably heard if you're a sports fan is that on the collegiate level and certain athletes being ineligible because they violated protocol, that's kind of what we're talking about, and that's the importance of that pledge. It does us no good if students follow the rules only when they're on the court and in the classroom. But if we have for example, a Super Bowl gathering with many friends with no masks and no social distancing, that could potentially be, and it would be, a violation of that code. So, the goal is to get them on the field, but the goal is also to make sure that our athletes are as diligent outside school as they are inside school.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if the data came up yet, Dr. Egan. When we say we have to test our athletes, would what type of testing we'd be doing? The rapid or the sending out?
It will be a county supplied rapid test. I believe it is the same test that we were looking at for potential in-school testing, which is the Binix Now rapid test. It is very easy to administer from start to finish. It's about 18 minutes. 15 of it is just waiting to see what the result is. It actually resembles a pregnancy test in that if at the end of the test there are 2 lines, you're COVID positive. If there's only 1 line, you're COVID negative.
Wasn't sure where he was going.
I am confident that our nurses assist us in this endeavor and make sure that we can get this done. And the county is saying that they have 20,000 tests on hand, and they have more on order from the state. So fingers crossed that piece of the puzzle, we can navigate that, because that's really important.
So we would actually be getting, our staff would be getting the results and logging the results of the test and not sending them out anywhere.
Correct. We would be doing all that right on site. It's actually very simple. I've been trained myself, although I won't be the person administering the test. But yeah, it's done right on site. Literally the most annoying thing is waiting 15 minutes for the test result to appear. And it would be either right at the high school or right at the middle school. One of the important things at some point, which I'm hoping to have maybe tomorrow, the next day, is consent. So we do need consent from parents ahead of time to know that parents are comfortable with us testing their child in school. But again, just understand if you don't consent, we can't do the test. And the option would be either once a week, the child needs to come with their negative test that they've obtained somewhere else, or they wouldn't be able to participate. But the county is allowing students, either for whatever reason, they miss the in-school testing, or they're not comfortable with that. The athletes will be able to bring their own proof of negative test with them, and that will suffice.
In a certain window of days before practice.
Yeah, it's if I remember correctly, and Mr. Dennison, I'll share this with the athletic community. I believe it's within 7 days of when the school test was administered. So there is a little bit of a wiggle room window there. If for whatever reason you miss as an athlete when we did the testing, or if you want to just do it on your own, that's fine.
So we're going to have a schedule, like football will go on this day, but the sports will go on a different day.
Yeah, we are hoping to have an actual schedule that we can share with our coaches and our athletes and our parents. I don't know what the schedule is going to look like just yet, but that's the next critical piece that we're working on, and we'll be working on that as early as tomorrow morning.
Let's add it to the list of things, right?
Mrs. Nally, I actually have a plethora of questions, okay, as opposed to a dearth. Number one, that we were considering sending a letter to the Suffolk County Department of Health based on the metrics, based on the science, but this negated the need for the letter, and it all happened very quickly, as Dr. Eden said, as of Friday, rather than going through a legislative process and letters, which might have been a lot slower, but that's besides the point. If I understand this correctly, though, if there's a shortened winter season, that means there's a shortened or a fewer number of contests also, because the end date is the end date, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Second, what happens as far as the number of preseason practices? Gotten any guidance as to does that be, for football? It was 12 days, I believe, was. Well, that can't happen in such a shortened schedule. Okay, so I was just curious about the number of preseason practices. Next, the number of participants per sport, especially for the larger teams, has that been announced? Is there anything that says that football or boys, girls lacrosse can only have so many participants in the activity, as opposed to being on the team? Okay. The other one that I was going to ask about was, have we heard any potential for any type of playoff season, whether it was a Suffolk County? I don't think there could be a Long Island championship, a state championship. That's not going to happen under this. But then probably the most important one that I have is that if there's multiple COVID positivity on a team, might that shut down the team also? Leading to what you had said about not just signing a pledge, but adhering to the pledge, adhering to social distancing, adhering to not having large gatherings. We have the Super Bowl coming up, for example. But could that affect the team's participation in practices and or games?
So great question, Mr. Johnson. The answer is yes. And if you look at the college football season that just came to closure, you'll see that on the college level, teams played vastly different number of contests. Ohio State, go Buckeyes. Mr. Storch is still out there somewhere. But Ohio State was a team, they might have only played 8 or 9 teams this year. So, the number of contests will probably and will be dictated if we can keep everybody healthy and keep everybody on the field and continue to field a team that can be competitive.
And the other team.
Yeah,
Okay. Right, and we've already seen one track meet canceled because of the other school having to go remote.
correct.
Thank you.
Correct. All right.
Back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Okay, sorry. my
Madam
computer
President's
is-
trying to queue up for a thing.
What's that?
Said Madam President's queuing up for.
It picked me up in Zoom. Okay. All right. So we are going to move on to public comments for agenda items only. Board of Education will hear public comments that address voting items on tonight's agenda only at this time. Speakers must state their first and last names to the district clerk and then address their comments to the board. Comments by any individual may not exceed 3 minutes. A visible timer will be used to monitor this time limit. The public comment sections of this meeting will not exceed 30 minutes in total. In fairness to all, speakers who exceed the 3-minute limit and do not finish when asked will be muted. Due to confidentiality concerns, the board does not permit speakers to raise issues concerning a specific student or a specific personnel matter. Such concerns should be presented to the superintendent after the board meeting. Does anyone have any questions pertaining to agenda items only or any comments? If you do, please raise your hand or use your little icon. Check on here.
Is this where we ask questions about high-risk sports, or we wait to the end?
Oh, that's at the end. We're only doing agenda items only at this time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I see a Lori at the bottom. Lori at the bottom.
Lori's hand.
Lori have her hand up?
Yes,
Yes.
that's me. Yes. I don't know if it's on the agenda, but I would like to discuss about, are there any plans, and if so, of the rest of the Kings Park grades to go back full-time anytime soon?
Excuse me.
There were at least 11, if not more, school districts that are going back full-time.
Thank you, Lori. That is not an agenda item. That's a question for the end of the meeting. When we have public comments at the end of the meeting.
I thought this is public comments now.
It's only for agenda items, items that are on our agenda to discuss before we get to public comments at the end of the meeting.
Okay, I apologize. Okay.
All right. Okay, so we're not seeing anyone. If we're missing you, please just speak out. Otherwise, we're going to proceed with the meeting. Okay. Next is approval of minutes of the January 12th, 2021 regular meeting. I will make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye. I wasn't. I'm sorry, I am saying I was mute for that.
And old business non-voting, a 2021-2022 calendar discussion. Dr. Egan.
Okay, we're trying to wrap up our calendar. And let me see if I can share my screen. Just give me a minute. Okay, here's draft B. It's the latest and greatest calendar that we've been looking at. If you've attended the past couple of meetings, the actual calendar has not changed. It is anticipated that this will be the calendar I'll be recommending. I'll walk the board through it one more time. The only thing I changed a little bit is the wording at the bottom of the calendar, and I'll point that out in a minute. So one of the things that's really challenging about next year's calendar is Labor Day is late again. It's September 6th. We have Jewish holidays. We have Rosh Hashanah on the 7th and 8th. So the first day of school is the 9th of September next year, which is very late. That kind of jams us up later in the calendar. So what we're proposing is doing 3 conference days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Typically, the 3rd conference day would be on election day. We do need to try to get more school days in so that we can get the kids in 180 days next year. So I'm proposing that we would be open on election day. Not the first time we've done that, and we certainly would not have done that this past year at all. But I feel very confident we can do that safely in what'll be an next year. Odd by not even, odd not that 2021 is odd. I think you know what I mean. But we are able to provide the community and our staff with the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, which is typically a day that I know the community and our staff really appreciate. We look at the December recess, which is slightly longer than a week. It's a week and a day. We go to January, which is very typical with Martin Luther King Day. We flip to February. We have the President's Week off and designated. March is a long month. We don't have any days off in March, but we have Passover and Easter in April, which are very closely aligned next year, so that works for us. We would begin the recess on the 15th of April, which is also Good Friday. And we hope to have, again, a week and a day off, but I'll come back to that in a minute. We have 1 designated snow day, which is the Friday before Memorial Day weekend. That would be the first snow day that we would take next year. The reason we're not adopting the calendar tonight is the state establishes what's called rating day. We know it as the last day of school. Right now, rating day is the 23rd of June. I anticipate that that'll change and they're going to push it back to the 24th, which is where it probably should have been to begin with. But that, again, gives us another day of school, which is good and gets us to 180. Is the recognition of Juneteenth by state law when the 19th of June falls on a Sunday. We're required to not have school on Monday the 20th. That is a new state law that was recently enacted and another constraint to our calendar. So down here in small writing, but important, is we have that 1 snow day on the Friday before Memorial Day, which is very clear. For the current year, the New York State Education Department is permitting schools to operate remotely on weather emergency days. We chose to not do that and take a snow day in December, and I think that was a good choice because we have multiple snow days this year. But if, and it's an if, this is an option next year and the state moves that pilot forward to next year, we would potentially want to do that because that will allow us to preserve April break. So if we had a 3rd snow day, we would need to be in session on April 22nd. A 2nd snow day, we would need to be in session on April 22nd. But if we took a remote day and we're allowed to do that, we wouldn't need to do that and so forth. So I've put that, almost like a little disclaimer at the bottom of the calendar that is really designed to kind of try to preserve that April break if we need 2 or 3 snow days next year. So what I'm hoping is that the state changes rating day to the 24th before the next board meeting, and then I would recommend this calendar for adoption. rather than adopting it now and then having to revise it after the state changes the rating day, which we think they're going to do on the Board of Regents level later. I guess it'll be next month at this point.
I just have a question. I'm not clear. If rating day is changed to the 24th, do we then have 181 days?
No, right now I have, I've
you
done
created
this
it.
calendar with the 24th as the last day of school,
Okay.
anticipating that that change is going to happen, and we do believe that the state is going to do that. Good question.
Any questions or comments from the board? So, new business non-voting, first reading of the revised policy number 3280, facilities use. Dr. Hagan.
Okay, so we had a couple of instances this year where we had members of the community, which I think were very well intended, but spooked us a little bit in terms of using outdoor facilities while kids are in school and potentially on recess or lunch or at phys ed. And while enforcing safety, general safety with these individuals, it caused us to look at board policy and see where we might be supported in board policy. Kind of chasing individuals who are using our facilities during the school day, which may potentially create a safety situation. So what I'm recommending is a new paragraph in policy 3280 that firms up this language and would give us support to potentially call the police and not that we would necessarily want to do that, but ask the individual to leave, and policy would support that.
Sounds like it's a good change. That makes a lot of sense.
Want to say the word safety.
And it just makes it clear that whether it's one of our playgrounds or the track, that if it's during school hours, those facilities are off limits.
Absolutely. Any other comments? Moving to new business voting, personnel schedule number 10, Mr. Craig.
Good evening, Mrs. Nally. Just a few highlights of tonight's personnel schedule. First, we do have the appointment of a new science teacher at Kings Park High School, Mr. Jason Fremante. So this position will be filling Miss Mary Ellen Fay, who's retiring mid-year. So Mr. Fremante will be joining our science department. He comes with a wealth of experience, recently taught at Hauppauge schools, Sachem, and is currently an adjunct professor at Suffolk Community College, teaching anatomy and physiology, which is one of the courses he'll be teaching here. So I know Jason's on the call, so I certainly want to congratulate Jason. Welcome him to Kings Park. You passed your first test. You made it through 2 hours of presentations. So
thank you.
Also, the board will note that Miss Mary Ellen Fay is on the agenda to serve in a part-time capacity for the balance of the year. This is to support our science research program through the end of June. Also, this time of year, we have retirements for both instructional and non-instructional staff members. So for our teachers, Ms. Sisternino, Mrs. Guasp, and Mr. Lang from Kings Park High School, and Ms. Paola from RJO, who I see is on the call as well. And for non-instructional, Ms. Kathy Siri, Mr. Merrill Fling, and Mr. Peter Drouse from William T. Rogers, all retiring. So we wish them the best, and we will have the opportunity to recognize them in the month of June. And that's the personnel schedule for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. First, to all of our retirees, we're very sad to see you go, but we wish you all the best in your retirement. And to Mr. Firmonti, congratulations and welcome to Kings Park School District.
Thank you very much.
Mrs. Nally, comment?
Absolutely.
Okay, very quickly. With our retirements, this is a who's list of teachers in the Kings Park School District. These are Hall of Famers as far as I'm concerned. I had a chance to work with both Suze and Paul, and I just want to point out that Robin Faber, Paola, second row, fourth seat, right next to Corey Kepler, first year I ever taught, and she became the first individual to become a former student of mine, become a teacher.
Incredible.
Okay, I would make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye. Congratulations, everyone.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Moving on to new business voting curriculum, authorization to sign agreements for educational technology services. Dr. Farzano?
Thank you, Mrs. Nally. This resolution just authorizes the board to approve agreements with several vendors, which will allow us to remain in compliance with Ed Law 2D, which addresses student and teacher data privacy.
Thank you, Dr. Farzano. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Whereas the Kings Park Central School District has obtained various supplemental data privacy agreements that comply with Ed Law 2D, the education technology services to be used in classrooms and in the school district. Whereas the agreements have been reviewed and approved by the school district's legal counsel, and therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education approves and authorizes the president of the Board of Education to sign agreements as listed below. Up to donation of gifts. As per district policy, all donations must be approved by the board. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Resolved that the Board of Education gratefully accepts the following donations. The Ergonomic Group of Jericho, New York is donating the following to be used district-wide. 10 Metagenic keyboards, 46 Action Tech Screen Beam Pro wireless receivers, 3 APC battery backups, value unknown. Mr. Josh Northport, New York is donating 4 Eaton 5PX 2200 UPS battery backups, value unknown. The Director of Technology and Data Systems has secured an additional donation from New York State Education Department. Create project of 24 Dell Optiplex 7010 CPUs with Intel processors, 6 Dell Optiplex 9020 CPUs with Intel processors, 10 Hewlett Packard Elite 8100 CPUs with Intel processors, value unknown. Kings Park High School Robotics Booster Club is donating $2,400 to the Kings Park High School Robotics Program. Thank you to everyone. Total value of donations to date is for the 2020-2021 school year is $42,843.
Just a thank you to all those folks in district and out of district for putting those together. And Diane, I think it's safe to assume that value of those donations, as you read out, so many of them are value unknown. So that 42,000 is far short of the value that the community is generously donating to the district. So we thank everybody for that. And Dr. Deere, I assume, for working to get that grant is it's a big benefit to the district and the students.
Yes, and I believe this is the second one that's done?
Second one.
Yeah.
Yes, so thank you very much. Next is acceptance of recommendation to add verified new vendors to the approved district vendor list. As per district policy, all vendors must be approved by the board before any payment can be made. Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Acceptance of second quarter 2020-2021 school year treasurer and claims auditor reports. Mrs. Meehan.
Yes, hi. This resolution accepts the second quarter treasurer and claims auditor reports. The second quarter report covers the months of October, November, and December. Our treasurer, Diane Pullman, is here with us virtually this evening, so thank you, Diane, for the great work. And her report consists of trial balances, bank reconciliations, cash flow analysis, revenue status, and budget status, as well as extracurricular activity fund reports.
Thank you, Mrs. Meehan, and thank you, Mrs. Pullman. I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Resolved that the Board of Education accepts the second quarter 2020-2021 school year treasurer and claims auditor reports. I should have asked, did anyone have any questions before we do this? Next is acceptance of CSE meeting recommendations. Dr. Egan.
We have 14 CSEs on the agenda tonight, which were held between the dates of December 15th and January 14th.
Anyone have any questions? I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the attached individualized educational programs, IEPs, from December 15, 2020 to January 14, 2020, 14 in total. And we are at special reports and announcements from the superintendent, Dr. Egan.
Okay, I'll start with my COVID-19 weather report. So if you've been following the statistics on COVID-19, on December 30th, our area hit an all-time high positivity rate of 12.8%. On January 6th, we were down to 11.0%. The governor has pointed out that Long Island is the highest in the state, and that's for the past 2 weeks. We're approximately 7% right now, which is still a little high, but certainly better than 12.8% and 11%. Suffolk continues to be slightly higher than Nassau. You know, here we are. We're looking forward in the calendar to February. The scary thing is that we had the first case of COVID in Suffolk County on March 9th of 2020. So the sad fact is we're coming up on 11 months. We have approximately 1,500 new cases per day in Suffolk County, but again, that number has been dropping a little bit, which is promising, and hopefully it will continue to do just that. Our single greatest challenge, and I mentioned this before, is simply keeping our schools open and being consistent and predictable. We've done a great job at doing just that since September. And, you know, a couple of important staffing pieces still concern me. The number one being having sufficient bus drivers that can continue to transport our students to and from school. That continues to be a little bit of a struggle as families not only have COVID, but we have employees who have children who might test positive and are home on quarantine and so on and so forth. So we're keeping a very close watch on that. Again, I emphasized at the start of the meeting, we've had more students quarantined during the month of January than we did in September, October, November, December. For example, today we had 3 new cases that resulted in 39 student quarantines, 3 teacher quarantines, and an aide in need of quarantine. Thankfully, it's a 10-day quarantine now, which is reduced from 14 days. But it shows that, even with all of our protocols in place, that 3 cases can generate, 43 quarantines between students and teachers. We do continue to reevaluate as we move forward, just as we did this week with the revised guidance in the area of athletics. That caused us to make some changes, and we'll certainly be putting kids on the field and on the court very shortly. But again, that was the result of some very targeted changes in guidance that we received from the governor and then from the Suffolk County Department of Health Services. So that is the area that we were able to address at the current time. On a positive note, I've mentioned the concept of a sharing table, and we're hoping that that sharing table is going to be up and running at Savat Park on Main Street. If you're not familiar with Savat Park, you probably are familiar with the park, but you just don't know it's called Savat Park. It's right next to Ralph's on Main Street where the clock is, and there's a nice bricked area there. We have approval from the town of Smithtown to use a little portion of that area, and we have support from the Chamber of Commerce and the local Rotary Club. And I will invite, if we have any residents out there that might have a clear storage container at home, or you want to run out to Home Depot or one of our local hardware stores and pick up a storage container, we will need some clear storage containers inside of the sharing table, so that we can keep critters out of our non-perishable food. So those can get dropped by San Remo, which is this building at 180 Lawrence.
I'd say that my wife would appreciate all the stuff that's in there.
I have some super exciting news that involves a donation. It's not on the board agenda for approval tonight because of the way that the donation is coming to the district. But some wonderful news that was shared with me from Francesca Riley, who's the president of the Kings Park Music Boosters Association. The Music Boosters have been looking towards corporate sponsorship and corporate donations. And we have a wonderful gentleman in the community, Joe Sorrentino, who together with his employer, Google, have donated $12,500 to the Music Boosters for the purpose of completely buying new drums for our drum line for our marching band. It's an extremely generous donation. Mr. Sorrentino is a Fort Salonga parent. He was a marching band member at the high school and collegiate levels. He has a love for marching band, and we look forward to thanking him in person one day soon. It's a super, super generous donation. Again, $12,500 that's going towards the Music Boosters. And then the Music Boosters are gonna purchase new equipment for our drum line at the high school. So pretty exciting there. And last but not least, on a positive note, this time of year, every year, we get what's called our fiscal stress report card from the state. So Mrs. Meehan and Mrs. Pullman are on the call this morning. I just wanted to thank the two of them and our super high business department. We are again a no designation district, which is the best designation that you can have on the fiscal stress report card. We hope to be able to continue that into the future with our fiscal horizon ahead of us and some challenges, but we know that we're going into these fiscal challenges in a really good place financially, which is where you want to be when you're faced with challenges. So thank you, and that's my report.
a lot of nice things in that report. You know, I just have to say that we are very proud of Mrs. Meehan and her business department. They do such a phenomenal job, and everything that they do is just amazing. They keep us in a really good place, as do all of our employees. I mean, everyone has come together and done above and beyond what needed to be done to get us in school and, you know, in such a good place with instruction and the kids. We really have a fantastic school district. So thank you, everyone.
May I?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's with regret that I note the passing of Mr. Jack Hessel. And number one, he was a education advocate, former commandant of the Kings Park Yacht Club, worked with the Kings Park Chamber of Commerce, and he volunteered at the Kings Park Heritage Museum. He's just a wonderful, wonderful man. Our collective condolence to his wife, Gail Hessel. Second, we just wanted to note that the Kings Park St. Patrick's Day Parade year, as well as the Grand Marshal Ball, whereby we would honor Charlie Gardner and his daughter Diane. Third, to Mrs. Meehan again, we'll share notes on the Super Bowl at a later date. Okay, tonight's not the time. And finally, I was with COVID, I was kind of hoping they postpone Groundhog Day. The last time I said something, we got 18 inches the next day. So I'm not going to say that. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have anything?
You have to really go before Kevin, next you have anything to say.
Yeah.
You can't follow that.
I come together.
Okay, so we're moving on to public comments. Again, the Board of Education will hear additional public comments. Please follow the procedures outlined for the public comment session earlier this meeting. In addition, please note that the board will take no action at tonight's meeting. Please. Okay, just please remember, if you have a public comment, you have to state your first and last name for the district clerk. So I know, Mr. Hagan, you had a question earlier. If anyone else has a question, please raise your hand or use your icon. Ms. Hagan, do you want to?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. First name's John, last name's Hagan. I talked last meeting about high-risk sports. I don't know what you guys did, but you made it happen. Nice job. So, but also I'd like to thank all the board members that actually reached out to me by phone or by email. I've been corresponding with Dr. Egan. Thanks for all the communication and stuff. Pretty much hit all the notes. Cohort A and B getting back together. Weight room opening February 8th, which I like. Testing, which is good. But still got one more hurdle. We got like to see spectators at the sporting events, whether it's the parents, just the parents. It can be done. I know it's Section 11 has made that decision. So yesterday, Mr. Combs said that the ADs made the decision. I'd like to know where Mr. Dennison stands with that decision, what science they used. They should be able to fit at least 35 people in a gym, 6 feet apart, and make it happen. Whether you have to test the parents coming in, just have the home kids do it, stuff like that. Like something simple, especially with outdoor sports, should be able to be done also. So last year we had graduation, 45 kids at a time, 2 parents over on the bleachers, social distancing. We made it happen. I think I'd like to know where the district stands with this. I know it's not a Kings Park decision. It was a Section 11 decision. New York State guidelines say that you can use, they can have 2 participants per player. So it doesn't have to even be a parent. Just as 2 participants. They can ask a friend to come. It's as long as 2 participants come. So I just like to know where we stand with that. Once again, thanks for everything that everybody's doing. Congratulations to the new teachers, to the teachers that are retiring. So thanks a lot.
Mr. Hagan. I think that from what we know, what we've been told is that Section 11 has made the decision that there are no spectators. I do not believe it was up to the athletic directors at all, right, Dr. Egan?
Yeah, you know, we have an interesting dynamic across the state where there are vast differences in impact in communities. Right now, with Long Island being the highest rate in the state, that may be driving the county and the section's position on this. It may change as the metric changes. But currently, that is the recommendation that we should limit spectators not only at practices but also at contests.
Thank you, Dr. Egan. Next, Mrs. Carragher, you had a question?
Yes, hi. I actually have two questions. Well, I just want to say, I want to discuss what are the plans, if so, for the rest of the Kings Parkers grades to go back full-time anytime soon. There were at least 11 or more school districts that are going back full-time, and I had compared some of the COVID numbers with theirs and ours, and we're about the same numbers as theirs. So I'm kind of hoping that in the future that we're going to have a date of bringing the kids back full-time, because I really do feel that is hurting our children's learning and mental health, and our children need to have some kind of hope of normal to return. And you know, a lot of kids in the high school are losing their passion or losing their sight for what their future is going to bring, and they're dropping out of things that they love to do, and we really need to get them back full-time. Also, with the remote learning, I find that a lot of kids are having a hard time managing all the emails of homework that they're getting. They're not taught how to manage being on the computer 24/7 like an adult would you know, with like their job, what they would do. They're not taught that. So in the sense of them with the remote learning, is it possible that in school they can kind of go over how to manage their emails, their homeworks, how to be more organized with their school online? Because I feel that they're getting lost and they're giving up and they're getting very frustrated. And it's very difficult for them. And with no insight of going back to normal, how are they supposed to, you know, they're just not, some of them are not doing well as they did before, because they would do their homework differently. They had a different system. Now they're doing everything on the computer. It is completely different for them. And some are computer savvy and some aren't. And some are more organized in a different system and some are not. And they need to be shown, I think, what to do on the computer now, how to use different tools to help them be more organized. So maybe you can answer those two questions. I would really appreciate it.
Okay, so in reference to your first question, when the Department of Health changes the guidelines and we can bring children back, we will. We absolutely will. But right now, we don't have the spacing in the middle school or the high school to bring classes back in full. Also, we don't have the space in the lunchroom or for phys ed, and busing would be an issue. So we have to follow the guidelines, and we cannot fit the children in the schools, in the middle school and the high school. And the second question.
But the other districts have different sized campuses and different sized buildings. They have available space where we don't.
Well, some have added a fourth.
And be compliant with the regulations set by the state.
And one of the things that I was very surprised to learn is that the classrooms in the elementary schools in Port Salonga and Parkview are larger than they are in the middle school and the high school. We have small classrooms. we can't put the kids in there. We can't put a whole class in there.
I
and still
understand.
Follow the guidelines.
I do understand that, but can they maybe bring a 4th day of remote in or something? Because, I mean, some school districts are bringing a 4th day in. They're not, some of them aren't 5 days, some are 4. So maybe we can push another day in, that would be a little helpful, because the kids that are on remote, it's very difficult.
Yes, and you brought up a lot of good points with your second question that, we can discuss. And I think Dr. Egan wants to address some of your concerns. Right. We have to remember that there might be other people that have questions. So you can always email your questions and you can go into a little more detail in an answer and then report back to the community. Dr. Egan?
Yeah, let me just add a little bit. I know we're spending a little bit more time on this question, but I think it's a big question and one that, quite frankly, we anticipated, and not just we as a board and the superintendent, but also my superintendent colleagues, because I understand that with the change in sports, this prompts, where can we do a little bit more in terms of in-person instruction? What might not be so obvious is percentage of students that are on full remote, and that percentage ranges from about 5% in Suffolk County to about 40%. And in Kings Park, depending on our school, we're somewhere between 5% and 9%. If we were higher than that, it would give us more opportunity to bring more students back more often. It literally boils down to space in classrooms and simple division. If you divide 650 square feet of space by 36 square feet per student, you're going to max out at 18 students in a class. I can't put 24 students in that class, or I violate Department of Health guidelines for social distancing. And the last thing I'll add is I had what I will describe as the great pleasure of spending some time with Dr. Piggott, who's the head of the Suffolk County Department of Health Services, Steve Ballone, and a couple of other higher ups in Suffolk County. And we did discuss this exact question, and their recommendation was adhere to that social distancing guideline. And especially right now with the high positivity and with the UK variant in Suffolk County, districts looking to violate that guideline is definitely not recommended. And Dr. Pickett looked visibly upset that there were districts that were considering maybe going in a different direction than his recommendation. But it very much I want to do, and I know we all want to do, we just need to make sure that the guidance that is most current supports that decision. And when it does, we will certainly pivot, or if we have the ability to do a little better, even if it's with small groups of students, we would certainly look to do that and continue to reevaluate as we go into the spring.
Okay, but what about the second question I had about them being unorganized with the emails, the online learning, how you guys can help them be more organized and help them, with their work on remote. I mean, they're having a difficult time online. They're very lost with the emails and the homework. Everything's at a date. They just don't know how to be organized doing work online like an adult would if they had a job. So we need some kind of tools that we need to give.
Lori, we do appreciate the question. I think we got it, as Diane said earlier, you raised some great points. I don't know, Dr. Egan, if you just want to get back to her with a follow-up, or if you have any comments now or suggestions.
So great feedback. I will share that with the principals, and I do encourage you to share that with your child's teacher if they're having particular struggles in specific classes. But we do need to make sure that we try to adhere to the 3-minute rule so that other residents have an opportunity to make.
I understand that, but the problem is the lack of communication.
I'm gonna have to mute you now. I do apologize. We may need to follow up, but we do need to be fair to the other residents that are.
Oh, okay, that's fine, but please follow up about it. It is a really good, valid point that needs to be.
Is there anyone else that has?
Dre.
I'm sorry.
Next to Lori, Dre.
Okay. Yes, Dre's iPhone. Dre's iPhone, did you have a
Dre, you're
question?
muted. If you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Wrong one.
Okay,
I guess not.
all right, is
Anyone else?
anyone else have a question? You raise your hand or use your icon.
Emmett?
Okay, Emmett,
Hi there.
if you could please.
Sorry, I was on my phone and my PC simultaneously.
Okay, if you
You
could,
guys hear me now?
yes, could you please state your
You
first
can?
name?
We can
Yes,
hear
we
you,
can hear
just
you.
if you give.
Okay.
identify yourself.
So my question is, in the beginning of the year, we were told that if our child was full remote, they would not be able to participate in any
You identify
sports
yourself.
activities or clubs.
Excuse us. We just need a name before you start.
Is that still the case?
First and last name, please. We need your.
I don't think they can hear me, John.
If you could please identify yourself, we need your first and last
Am I
name.
muted?
Turn your.
I don't know.
We just need you to identify.
Yeah, they can't get me. I don't know why.
On 2 devices and she has the volume off. It's probably.
Okay.
Is there anybody else while we try and sort out?
Oh, well,
Anybody else have
That's
a
okay.
question?
I think I'm frozen.
Can you see the other pages?
Yeah, I don't. Any others out there? Mrs. Paola, we assume that was just a stretch.
You're gonna
Yeah,
dance.
both hands up.
That's the retirement dance.
Okay.
I don't see any other. Oh, there is one.
You see
It's just
somebody?
fourth page, off my fourth page, iPhone.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, if you could please state your first and last name for our district clerk.
Hi, this is Tara Griffin. How are you?
Great, thank you. Go ahead.
I just have a question. In the middle school, I have 2 children that attend there. I know that they're using the Chromebooks a lot, but they are required to carry their binders for each subject with them, even though that they're not using them, which is just making the backpacks kind of on the heavier side. Is there any guidance or instruction from the principals? Because I know some of the teachers are requiring this for them to carry all of this supplies that they don't really need.
That is a great question that probably should be asked on the building level. With one of the administrators, I know Mrs. Moreno would probably be more than happy to listen to your input. But that's probably a great question on the building level.
Hi, Ms. Griffin. It's Ms. Marino, Lauren Marino. You can give me a call tomorrow.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. You know, every team's just a little different this year, and so I can touch base with you in the morning. We could talk about some strategies. I'll connect you with your children's teachers, but we are investigating a little bit how we could better utilize or even utilize at all our lockers. It is something that we're looking into. I know a lot of students in the middle level don't really have coats, but for those who do have coats, we're just kind of exploring that right now. And so in the next couple of weeks, we might start that on the 6th grade level to see how it goes, pilot it. But until then, why don't you just give me a call tomorrow? We'll touch base and we'll see if we could solve that for you.
Okay, that would be great, because I noticed a lot of the kids aren't wearing coats because they don't have the lockers, which I completely understand why. So I was just thinking, you know, off the top of my head, if they carried, you know, a folder with some paper that they can put into their binder for their specific subject at home, then they might be more inclined to wear a coat, especially with the cold freeze that we're going to be getting. So just trying to make it easier and as simpler for them as we possibly could.
Yes, heard loud and clear. Thank you. Yeah, we definitely don't want the kids carrying too much. I think every team's in a little bit of a different spot with resources being digital or on paper. Some grade levels are at a different place right now. And so we'll touch base tomorrow. We'll see what we could do about your particular children and their situation, and share with you a little bit about what we're doing on the whole with the locker situation.
Okay. That'd be great. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Anyone else that has a question or a comment? Chrissy, do you have a question or a comment? No, I'm not seeing anyone. If you do and we're missing you, please just speak out. Okay, so I think we're good, and we will move on to important dates. Friday, January 29th is Superintendent's Conference Day. And Tuesday, February 9th is the next Board of Education meeting at 7:30. So we want to thank you all for joining us tonight, and have a great evening.
Now, I just want to clarify, when you said Superintendent Conference Day, that means schools are closed?
Yes, schools close that day, and the teachers will be in for conference day. Okay. All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.